Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so I will introduce you and then I'll let you introduce yourself. But yeah, Mariah and I started working together, I think it was the end of 2023,
Yeah.
and we worked about until very recently, around the end of 2024. And yeah, I remember that we were talking a little bit before that. And what I've seen in you since that process is really like ownership of your voice. I've seen like you owning that you're a leader and just the transformative work that you're doing. And it's been really beautiful for me to witness your journey. And so yeah, there's just a space where you'll be able to share about your experience working with me, but your experience in general, just growing since we've met and just like, yeah, what's been coming through for you in your life. So I'll put the mic over to you so you can intro yourself and share anything that you want to share about yourself.
Thank you, Kyle. I'm so
Yeah, of
grateful
course.
on this journey with you. It's been really exciting and fun and
I love that.
explosive. Um, I consider myself to be many things, but I'm
Mm,
mostly an integration and embodiment guide.
I love
I
that.
basically I guide women through the largest journey we're here to take, which I believe is from our mind to our heart.
Mm,
Um, Place where we can learn how to observe our internal state and
mm,
actually cultivate a state of safety within ourselves first,
mm,
so that then our external reality can reflect that.
mm,
I use spirituality, I use science, I use a lot of different philosophies and techniques in my teachings, but
mm,
I think my biggest teaching is the embodiment of life being our greatest teacher.
mm,
So, what I really love about our coaching and the coaching that I provide is the one-on-one text support where
mm,
we get to hold each other's hand through the
mm,
journey of life, because it's not
mm,
about what comes up in a one-on-one call, but it's about how we integrate all that comes
yeah.
up into our everyday life. And I feel like that has been my biggest transformation since working with you. It has been this deep embodiment of my self-worth and
Mm,
my capacity to do it all. um, when we met, I was very much in this desire to be in my flowy feminine and
I
my
love that.
and my resistance to structure and my
Yeah.
resistance to anything to do with masculine energy, because my I healed myself from being so dominant in that masculine energy that ultimately created a lot of disease in my body. So
Mm,
through you, I think that was a very important part of choosing you as my coach.
mhm,
As the first masculine that I've hired, I got to
mhm,
learn how to not only heal my own relationship with my inner masculine, but
mhm,
actually become the embodiment through you,
mhm,
through seeing you and what you do, and having you as my mind's evidence of what is possible, and that
mhm.
this is actually a reality that I can achieve too. It's not just
Yeah.
planted in my heart out of nowhere, that this is
Yeah.
a desire that is real and that I can take up that space and use
Yeah.
masculine from a healthy lens to
Mhm.
actually build a business that not only gives me financial freedom, but actually impacts the lives of the women that I get to work with.
I
So,
love that. That's so beautiful to yeah to hear that journey because it brings me back. I remember that moment when we first met when you were talking about how in the past you were so much in your masculine and in control, and so that was something you were learning to integrate in a healthier way. And so yeah, I'm curious for you, what what do you feel like is the shift or like what do you feel like has what does it look like now for you in running your business to have a healthier, masculine integration? What does that look like for you?
that's a good question. I feel like what it looks like for me. So, in at the same time that this is happening, in parallel that I'm working with Kyle, I'm also
Mhm,
deepening into my relationship to the extent that I end up getting married.
mhm,
So I am now suddenly living with a masculine and suddenly
Mm.
integrating my life in a way that I had never done before because I've never been married before. So there was
Yeah.
a lot of parallels here happening, pushing me to meet this masculine part of me. And
Mm.
what I would say that looks like is instead of staying in process with my
Mm.
emotions all the time, it's being able to move with my emotions because
Mm.
now I have people that are relying on me. Like I can't be
Yeah.
my emotional process like I used to be, and I set my life up in a way that actually ensures that that happens, which was the
Mm.
part of me that wanted to stay small, the part of me that didn't want to build something, because then what about my sweet emotions? So
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest integration piece. It's that I've learned how to keep moving forward, how to keep showing up, how to keep my vision super clear in the time
Yeah.
that I spend, not only in my practices, because now my practices have become even more sacred because
Mm.
there's more attention poured into it, because I get
Mm.
to do this, but with this, I get to do everything else that I need to do in my day that's going to support
Yeah.
my clients, that's going to create more growth for myself, and that's going to set myself up for the next
Yeah.
big phase. So it
Yeah.
really about moving with my emotions and not letting my emotions be the procrastinator and the avoider,
Ooh,
and instead
that's
move when
big.
I'm not perfect. Move when I'm not perfect. Just
Yeah,
keep
I love that.
those
Yeah.
aligned action steps, even though most of the time I don't know what I'm doing, as Kyle knows. Um, I'm still doing it and I'm learning, and the goal
Yeah.
isn't perfection, it's expansion and morphing.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. That's so beautiful. That's such a beautiful reflection. I'm curious from, yeah, your experience, if you want to talk directly about the impact you feel like working together has had on just the development of you. You're good. You're good. We invite dogs in here too. On like the development of your business. So if you think about from where your business was before we started working together to where your business has evolved, what would you say are some points of growth that you feel like you've experienced in your business?
Definitely. So when I met Kyle, I was working very physical. I was
Mm.
doing one-on-one coaching. I had been hosting a lot of group spaces for 4 to 5 years. I was undercharging. I still remember the first thing you told me, where you're like, you do know we're gonna have to play with these numbers. And I was like,
I do remember that. Wow.
so that's where I was. I was very much dependent on my physical location, which was a tiny island in Europe in the Mediterranean, which is where I'm from. And of course, there was a lot of scarcity in that community. There was a lot of, lack of spiritual connection, lack of community in itself.
Mhm.
And my desire in working with Kyle was to take my coaching to the
Mhm.
next level and create deeper impact through my coaching. So,
Mhm.
working with less people and actually going fully virtual and online, because my husband and my partner at the time is American. So I knew that travel was going to be a big part of our lives because that's a
Mhm.
value that we both shared.
Mhm.
So the biggest transformation, I would say, would be that piece of
Mhm.
moving from being an in-person space holder
Mhm.
to morphing into less clients, more structure, more income, because of course I'm charging these people more because of the level of transformation and depth that we're going through, and
Yeah.
so more capacity for me to be virtual.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. It brings me back because you're such a different person now. It's hard to even remember, like, yeah, these were like some of the early conversations. Because now, like, the pricing conversation, you're kind of leading that. You're like, no, this is what I'm worth, like, charging. So it's so cool seeing that transformation. So you've mentioned structure a few times. Can you speak to some of the maybe structural things that you feel have been helpful in our work together, and maybe some of the things that uh, kind of surprised you. So this is kind of like two questions. So like maybe some things that surprised you that you didn't expect, but also if you have some things when it comes to structure that you feel were helpful, you can highlight those as well.
I think one of the most important things that I'd like to say that isn't really shared in the coaching space is what happens when we hire somebody that
Mm.
is doing what we desire out of our own lives.
Mm.
When we exchange financial currency
Mhm.
for having entryway into
Mhm.
this person's energy that is
Mhm.
living an embodied life of what we
Mhm.
desire, that automatically, the energy of that ripples into our life.
Mhm.
So from your structure, Kyle, from your, morning meditations, evening meditations, writing down on a piece of paper what I actually want and how much I want to charge, I've never done before, actually being conscientious of where I'm putting my time and what I'm giving my energy to, and actually sitting my ass down and doing the thing that I said I'm going to do so that
Mm.
I can then receive feedback from you is,
Yeah.
I think that was a really big moment
Mm.
in all of it, because if we don't invest in ourselves financially, we don't really take it seriously. And I've been investing in myself in so many different layers and so many different ways. But
Yeah.
your investment was probably the biggest investment I had done in my life at the time, because obviously we keep
Gotcha.
growing. Um,
Hmm.
and that was really edgy for me. That
Yeah.
crunchiness of spending X amount of money for my dreams
Mm.
brought in a new level of commitment and a new level of locking in. Okay, well, I have to be realistic. I got Think and Grow Rich right over there. I have to be clear on what I want, and I get to
Yeah.
schedule that time into my calendar so that I can show up not only for my mundane, but even for what I want. And
Yeah.
you do that. So just
Yeah.
exchanging money in your world really brought that into my life. And it was a big surprise for me because I was so resistant to it. I just wanted, to do all the womb rituals and everything just lands in my in my lap and I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
No.
I hear ya. I hear ya. Yeah. It's so funny because I feel like my recent journey has been a lot of looking at my relationship with my dad and my masculine. And I feel like even in some ways, like uh I was I was almost scared to be too intense, I feel like in a lot of ways, because I'm like, I'm really fucking intense. And like now I'm like I'm bringing that even more in line, but it's so cool because either way, that was still what I was able to bring to the container. So it's cool to hear that reflected back that you're able to have that some of that ripple, which is really beautiful. Yeah, so I'm curious just from your end. This isn't necessarily through working just with me, but I'm curious from your end as you have grown yourself, the business, et cetera, over the last year plus. What are some ways you feel like you've surprised yourself? Like, what are some insights that you feel like have been surprising to you, maybe about yourself or about the experience of building a business?
That's a really good question. I feel like my capacity was a big one.
Mm.
Just I never thought I could do as much as I'm doing right now and still
Mm.
be caring for my well-being, be in connection with my body, be able to witness my emotions when they come up,
Mhm.
keep healing so deeply. And I
Mhm.
think that's like the most beautiful part of entrepreneurship. I think it's one of the deepest spiritual journeys we can walk,
Yeah.
because how deeply can you stand
Mm.
in your expression of divinity, and how
Mhm.
deeply can you trust that your gifts are here to literally change people's lives? And I
Mm.
I'm blessed that I
Mm,
literally receive messages every single day from my clients,
mm,
just expressing the deep transformation and impact that they are experiencing. So I think that was one of the biggest things that surprised me. And my best friend reflects this to me all the time. She goes through every process with me in my life. And one of the biggest things she shares with me is, I don't get how you can go through all this and at the
yeah,
same time just have your clients as your number one priority and have your business as your number one priority and still show up on social media and still write the email and still be, going through so much internally whilst also
yes.
holding what my desire is and what I believe I'm here to do in the world. So I think that was one of the greatest things that surprised me. But then also the how much fun it is, like how
Mm,
fun it gets to be
mhm,
because I get to make it fun. And Kyle knows this. I have so much resistance around technology. I have so much resistance on new programs and learning how to make things work. It triggers me. It's my biggest trigger. But I
mm,
learned that, I get to learn. I get to make this
mm.
fun. The energy that I am doing this with is
Yeah,
energy that's going to bring in my next round of clients. And
yeah.
that, like, moving away from showing up in that energy of pick me, I need you, I'm your
Mm,
coach, to actually fully surrendering and just doing the trust process in the quantum space. So, like, moving
yeah.
away from fear and in
Mhm.
deeper trust. I think this process was a big part of that too.
Cool. That's so cool. Yeah. This feels like I feel like there's so many people that yeah, just need that message because I feel like those are some of the biggest fears that people have is like, oh, taking on more responsibility. Can I still have my freedom? Can I still have fun? All this stuff and navigating life stuff. And so it's cool to hear your reflections of how you've developed this capacity and even surprised yourselves in these ways.
Yeah, and
One thing, go ahead.
I would love to add something else in there because I feel like now that I've experienced this, I truly understand it. It's like sometimes we get to put our nervous system into survival. We
Hmm.
get to meet that edge so
Hmm.
that we can get the things we desire. I did
Hmm.
all this in process of getting married, moving my life from a tiny island to America,
Hmm.
just there was so much change and grief happening in my life. It wasn't just, oh, okay, I'm comfortable where I am and I'm just going to build a business. Like there were so many personal things happening in my
Hmm.
life. And I feel like because of that, because I was so deep out of my comfort zone and pushed
Hmm.
so deep into survival, but I
Hmm.
have the tools to navigate survival now, that
Yeah,
I was actually able to create something really beautiful out of that survival state. So, you know,
yeah.
actually doing things we're scared of is a
Mm.
really big, important part of this entrepreneurial journey.
Facts, such facts, such facts. And I want to highlight too, your 20K month. I know that was a time where you were like because I know when we first started, you were thinking like, can I do this full time, etc. And you've created, the flow where you're able to have 20K months and things of that nature. So I want to just yeah, I'm curious to hear like what are some of the maybe shifts or things that you feel have been helpful for creating that level of abundance for you?
Hmm. Well, it's not the womb ritual, but it's a part. It goes hand in hand.
Of course, of course.
I feel like I did a lot of things in my life that exposed me to more desire, basically.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
found that I was holding on to a lot of
Hmm.
shame around what I want. I grew up in the smallest island. I grew up with people telling me I shouldn't speak, I
Hmm.
shouldn't want more, I shouldn't do anything, basically, and just be happy with what I have.
Hmm.
Um, so actually investing a large sum of money in myself made me see, oh, okay, people will pay this money. If I can
Mm,
pay this money,
mm,
then people are going to pay this money for my coaching. So
mhm,
that was one massive piece for me was, oh, okay, this is edgy. That's where I get to go. This is where growth
mhm,
lives. And then
mm.
I did move my life to America, which is very expensive, which
Yeah,
is very material, which is
yeah,
very different to my comfort zone where I was. And
yeah,
that push of, oh, okay, actually, underneath my shame is desire. And I can
yeah,
in desire, and desire is good for me because I'm here
yeah,
to grow, and it's great for me to want things that I don't necessarily need, but I want them. uh,
yeah.
and that was a huge, not only a mindset shift, but a huge energetic shift within me of
Mm,
unlocking this desire that I feel I locked up in a box for
mm,
so many years. Because
mm,
if I want this thing, then I'm not spiritual. If I want this thing, then I'm material. If I want
mm,
this thing, then I'm not. I'm complaining and I'm not in the energy of abundance.
mhm,
Whereas in reality, I feel like it really is about getting clear on what it is we want, whether that's money, relationship, clients,
mhm,
business, new home, getting
mhm,
clear on what that wants and really allowing ourselves to be in connection to that desire in the here and now, in the nervous system, teaching our nervous system, teaching our womb that
mhm.
this is what it feels like to hold
Yeah,
this thing that we want
yeah,
and move as if we already have it. Not to a state
beautiful.
that we spend money recklessly and spend, outside of our financial reality, but to a place where we know where we're going and we show up for that every single day.
Yes, yes to separating being spiritual from meaning that you can't be in touch with your desires. Yeah, totally, totally, totally. I'm feeling complete, but yeah, if you have any final thoughts that you want to share.
Hmm. I think my final thoughts is to take the leap
Hmm.
from a place of trust.
Hmm.
The fear is always going to be there because life is scary and it's uncomfortable and growth is crunchy, but we get to move with the fear and we get to create the type of dance we want to
Hmm.
live in. And I think dancing with Kyle was a really fun
Oh,
decision that benefited not only me, but my clients and
hmm.
my well-being and my marriage
Hmm.
and my life in general. This wasn't a business container for me. This was
Yeah.
so much more. And I'm really grateful.
Hmm. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I'm so grateful for yeah, that reflection, for the impact, for the ways that I was able to grow through working with you as well. And yeah, this work is so important to me. So I'm grateful when I have someone in the container that is willing to push themselves, willing to be vulnerable, be honest, and I got that out of working with you. So I'm grateful we got to do this together.
Thank you for allowing me to be human. And there was never in this journey where I felt unsafe to be vulnerable, unsafe to be myself, and unsafe
Mm.
to be in my own shit with you. So
I hear you.
I want to say thank you for that safety because it's
Uh,
not it's not always the case working with a masculine. And I think that's very telling to how much work you've done and
Thank you.
your intention. So thank you.
Thank you. I received that. Aw, that's beautiful.